Okay, this golfer came to the clinic looking to find ways to increase distance. Part of what we'd want to do to help increase distance would be to square up the right foot. Right now it's open. Both feet are open. It's okay to have the lead foot open, but we want the right foot a little more squared up, more perpendicular to the target line. So watch her takeaway now. So she's taking the club back primarily with her hands. We're not getting a whole lot of shoulder turn. She does a pretty good job there, but notice that she's raising up. Now, right there. We need to have the club parallel to the ground. If she's going to get her arms that high, she should at least be able to get the club parallel to the ground. But what the problem is her wrists are real tight, and because she's rolled over to the outside of her right leg because her foot's open, there's no leverage point. So if she drives back down to the golf ball, you'll see she's going to lose her club angle real quickly. Right now the club is almost on a straight line with the lead arm. We'd like to have a 90-degree angle there still so she can generate more power. Now you can see the club head is trying to pass the hands early because the left hand is decelerating a little bit. And there she goes, chicken wings. We got both elbows separated. We haven't rotated the club over. We need to get the left arm down, the elbow down, down. It's going up. Very strong, very powerful, but a few mechanical glitches that she can work on to get a little bit more power. The backswing is supposed to be a top-down move, with the first thing moving is the chest rotating around the spine. And I think what we'll see here is the first thing that moves on this golfer are the hips. Let's watch really slowly. See how the hips are going first? Hips and hands. So everything below the waist is turning more than above the waist. He's actually rotating his hips now more than he's rotated his shoulders. That's what's creating this little tip over type of a look right here, where it looks like he's tipping over and his chest is pointing to the sky. That's because he's over-rotated his hips and rotated them too early on the takeaway. That's going to cost him some yardage and some direction. So he gets to the top, pretty good position there, except for the fact that so he has way too much weight on his left leg. Now he's going to rotate, rotate right there. That's pretty good. But here's what happens. Right from there to there, he loses all of his club angle. See that? So he starts casting the club really too early. At this point, we'd like to see the club still at 90 degrees. Now you can see it's well past the hands, well before impact. Scoops underneath it. See how the right hand is under the club on through to the finish. A little bit of a timing issue, and again, using the hips more. So we're going to build more leg into the swing and less hip action on the takeaway. This is an excellent setup. Maybe the head could be lifted a little bit so the bill of the cap is pointing a little bit more away from the golf ball or over the top of it. More on that line there. But I'm not going to quibble too much of this. This is a good setup. Arms are hanging nice and freely from the shoulders. Let's watch the takeaway. Taking it back just a little too far. How he does that is by taking the left arm out away from his body and getting that right elbow to start a little bit behind him. So it's a little too flat. I'd like to see it a little bit more upright, especially here with a wedge. So he gets in a pretty good position there. Look at that. Very nice position. Club face parallel to the lead arm. Very solid right there. Let's see if he drops the club back down the line. See, there, little head drop there. Little all tiger. Coming in. What we want to do is we want to see if the club shaft bisects the trail arm. Doesn't quite. At that point right there, we'd like to see the club shaft laid off a little bit. More along that line like it was on the takeaway. But this is not too bad. Comes in, pulls up out of the shot a little bit, but turns aggressively through it to a nice relaxed finish. Good job. Here we see a nice setup. Right shoulder's lower than the left shoulder. Nice triangle created with the arms and the shoulders. Hands are body centered. Let's watch the takeaway. Taking the club back nice and low. Good rotation there. Good solid leg action. Lots and lots of wrist hinge. Look at the angle that he's maintaining here, coming into impact, still at 90 degrees. And if he just rotates his hands over, didn't quite get him over. See how it's not quite rotated over? So we'd like to see the hands in this position here, like he is here, needs to be the same as he is on the other side. So when his hand gets in front of his other thigh, we'd like to see the hands completely rotated. Now, they haven't quite done that. But But you can see he's getting a good ball flight. Ball's coming off the club nicely. Good leg action and a nice finish. We'll also notice that the right heel comes almost straight up. Nice move. So we're going to work on that release a little bit. Okay, we're using the slider board or the lie board to get a feeling of what it's like to actually make good solid contact with the ground and the ball first. So let's see how he does here. Nice setup. Good triangle created. Pretty decent takeaway. Pretty wide there. Nice. Little lift right there. See that? How he stood up a little bit. See how his head now is higher than the building back there. So we want to keep the head low if we can. He's coming back down to the ball. Get back in a good position. But what's happening here is the club is passing his hands way too early. See right there? It's already past the hands. We'd like to see the club staying behind the hands a lot longer than that if he can. And then you can see that the left elbow's pulling out behind him rather than keeping that triangle intact. And he ends up with the hands really close. If you go to the backswing at that same position, see how wide he is there? I'd like him to be that wide here also. We need to create more width on the follow-through. We're using the T device here to position the ball relative to the feet and also to position the shoulders relative to the target line. She had been putting the ball way too far forward, which would cause her to open her shoulders. It's got a nice square setup now, but when she takes the club back, she tends to lift it up. See how she's lifting up? She does that because she hasn't turned her left shoulder down towards her right toe, right big toe. We may have an issue there because she's damaged her left arm and side, so we may have to find a new way for her to swing the golf club without lifting up like this. Now she's collapsing way in too close to her body. And then she gets a pretty decent drive down to the ball. Look at the club leg she's generating there. That's pretty nice. And she's going to go right on through it, but then she goes under the club because the left arm doesn't turn over. See how the left elbow's coming out behind her? We don't want her to do that because that's going to cause some damage in the long run. And then she pivots on. Didn't get any right leg action, but considering she's just coming back from an injury and a long layoff, she's doing really well. Good setup, good foundation. It's really hard to create a bad swing from a good setup, and it's really hard to create a good swing from a bad setup. So let's see what happens here. Taking the club back nice, low and slow. Getting plenty of width in the takeaway. Look how wide he is there. His hand's about as far away from him as he can get them. We like to see that. Now, he has not the longest backswing, but his wrists are fully hinged. He's ready to drive into the ball. Got a little hip action right there going nicely. Moves into the ball. Maintains his club angle. See that? It's even greater than 90 degrees. It's even greater now than it was at the top. Pulls through. Now let's see if he turns that right hand over. Nope. Goes underneath the club. Left elbow comes up. See how the left elbow's coming up? Got to get him to turn that right hand over. See, that's get rid of that chicken wing completely. Not a bad move, though. The white line represents the swing plane. I'd like to see this golfer keep the head of the club on that white line on the takeaway. But what it'll end up doing is taking it way back to the inside. So that it's well below the swing plane. And his hands, then they come up. And now he's going to come over the top. His hands are out, quite a ways out away from his body as he's coming in. Now see where his hands are now. Coming into the impact position, his hands are at the white line. Go back to the setup position, and you see that his hands were well inside that white line. We have to learn how to return our hands back to the same spot they were at setup. So let's just watch this again. There's his hands. Lifts up, and he's outside the line. See how far outside he gets? Never even gets him down. He flips at it. So we've got to get him pulling the hands down, going deeper into the shot. This is the down the target line view, and again we're using the T to help describe the path of the swing plane and where the ball should be positioned relative to the feet. Now she drops her right foot back a little bit, which is okay to do, especially with the driver. Let's watch the takeaway now. Taking the club back. Come on, take it back. Nice and slow. There she's in a pretty good position. Notice the face of the club is parallel to the left forearm. Nice spot. Kept the club outside the hands. Now she's going to come up. Now she lifts up. So we got to get rid of the lift up. And then she just uses her arms to swing the club. And that's okay. Mo Norman did that. But what we see is as she's coming down to the shot, how almost parallel to the right forearm is the club shaft. That's a pretty good position right there. We'd like to see it right on parallel, or actually even right along the arm. That's a pretty good position. Coming in nicely. Hits the ball pretty solid. Leaves the club a little too open. See how open the club is right there? That's why the ball's going out to the right a little bit. This is an unusual view of the golfer standing right directly in his ball line. I can do this now because of the net. Well, let's watch this takeaway in slow motion. You're going to see what he does is he quickly takes the club pretty steeply to the inside. I still think that's too far to the inside. Let's see where he takes it to the top of the backswing. See, then he loops it up. See how when it comes, it's there, and then he goes up. That's going to create an over-the-top move relative to the initial swing plane. You can see the club is coming a little bit outside the hands there, coming down. We'll move into the impact zone. Pretty good position there, but then that left elbow starts to pull in behind him. There's really behind him and up to a finish. So we got to get him turning that left arm over a little bit more. What we see here is set up is that the shoulders are too leveled. The right arm should be well below the left arm, so the right shoulder should be much below the left shoulder. So I'd like to see his shoulders on more of a line of kind of parallel to that. So he's got a little bit of a spine tilt away from the target. Let's see what he does on the takeaway. See, then he turns his shoulders back level again. We're not getting the shoulders turning on the axis because we don't have the axis set in the right spot. Now he's got the shoulders down pretty good. Now he's going to turn. Good leg drive. Watch the roll of the right leg to the inside. That's really nice. Good move into the shot there. Good arm extension. One of the best I've seen from Robert. Awesome move right there. Right on through to a beautiful finish. Boy, that was a golf swing. When we saw this golfer from the down the line view, I mentioned that he slid or rolled his right foot over outside on the backswing. And you can see that see how he's done that here too. He's really rolled over to the outside and never quite gets it to come back. So you can see how much the club is bending forward here because he's really not releasing or rotating through the club, and he ends up with his weight on his back leg. At this spot right here, his right knee, right hip, right shoulder, and right ear should be on this line, quite a bit further forward than he is. This is a problem that a lot of golfers face, and we really need to learn how to get our weight transferred to the front side so that we hit the ball with momentum and mass. Watch on the takeaway how he drives his left knee towards the golf ball and ends up way up on the toe of his left foot. He hasn't really rotated any power. And then if you look carefully at the right foot, you can see he's rolled over to the outside of his right foot. So he's shifted all of his weight past his right foot. We need to be on the inside of our right foot. Now he's got a pretty good path there and a nice flat left wrist. That's really good. But he's having a hard time getting back to the ball because he's kind of stuck, and then he slides his foot. See how his foot is sliding behind him there? Instead of rotating onto it, and he ends up spinning out on his back leg. We need to get him to keep the inside of the right foot loaded onto the ground and then roll more onto the inside of the right foot on his downswing. We see a pretty nice setup here. It's hard to tell exactly where his eyes are, but it looks like they're a little bit behind the ball, which is where they should be. Let's watch the takeaway now. Not bad, keeping the hands nice and low, rotating, but he quit rotating right there. Now the arms are moving independently of the rotation. So he never really gets his chest turned back over parallel to his back foot. And again, we've got one of these guys that lifts his left heel up off the ground so much. Now let's see him drive into the golf ball. Not too bad. There's that right hand under the golf ball, which is going to create a chicken winging kind of a thing. And he's not able to rotate through and let his body rotate with the club to the finish. So he's a little out of balance. We have a good setup here, but what we're going to see is that the hands don't release the club at the top of the backswing. Let me show you what I mean by that. As we go to the top of the backswing, there should be a 90-degree hinge in the golf club. If we had that hinge, that golf club would be more along that line right there. If she was relaxed enough, as she starts back down, we'll see an increase in that club leg. Instead, we actually see a decrease. So you can see that the club is not increasing its lag, but decreasing its lag, which is a loss of power. See great leg action there right through the shot, and a great extension down the line. So we just need to get her to set the club a little stronger at the top of the backswing. I drew in the white line to show the golfer's spine angle. The white line points up to 1 o'clock, which is about correct. 30 degrees of spine tilt is what we're looking for here. And we want to see if the golfer maintains that spine tilt through the whole swing. So let's play this swing in slow motion, see what happens. Nice takeaway, just a tad bit of lift, not much. Then he comes right back down, but he's to the ball. Pretty good swing. Let's take one last look at the tilt. You can see how he's lifted up right there. We'd like to see him do is try to keep that level where it was before. And the reason he's lifting up is the right knee has straightened up. If you take a look right there, you can see that it's much straighter than it was here at setup. So the right knee straightens up, and that causes you to lift. Let's work on that. We have a very nice setup here. Let's watch how stable he stays on his takeaway. The head's staying really still. See how nice that is? Very well done. Turns back through the shot. Now if he shifts into his right side, but he's not. See, we don't see any movement here. We want to see kind of a rolling to the inside of that foot as he's going forward. And the right knee still doesn't turn in. So he ends up scooping it. See how his hands are under the club here. His right hand is under the club. As he comes through, it stays under. We never get to see the fingers of the glove hand. That's because he's not pivoting on to the front side early enough in the swing. This golfer here is attempting to hit a soft, short wedge shot. We're going to see one really good move here. He's going to keep his legs very steady on the way back. See that? Very silent. Nice hinge right there. Now as he starts down to the ball, he's going to keep his club leg. He's going to turn his body right through the shot. Keep turning. Look at that rotation. Look at the extension he has down the target line. That club is straight down the target line, and through he goes. What I would like to see happen is that on his finish here, rather than tilting forward, that his head is back on that line. His right ear, right shoulder, right hip, right knee should be straight up and down. At this setup angle, we can see that her knees aren't flexed enough. We like to have the knees out over the shoelaces a little bit. She's a little stiff, and it's even going to look stiffer as she goes back, so she kind of lifts the club up and really straightens up that right leg. Now she's got the hands real close to her body. She's got no width in her golf swing. She's standing up, doesn't have any power to generate, and just kind of comes down with this chopping motion. Notice that the club, instead of being on this line back to the golf ball, is pointing in the wrong direction on the way down. So his hands are going to come right over the top and chop at it. And off to the right goes the ball. You can see it way off to the right because she's not able to rotate through from those stiff legs. What we're going to see here is excessive leg movement on the left side on the takeaway. He just kind of collapses. Does drive it back pretty nice there into the shot. And gets a pretty good extension down the line. Rotates the club over pretty nicely and comes up to a nice finish. I think we can be a little bit more braced on the takeaway so that doesn't quite fold that much. I think he'll have better distance. What we're going to see here is a golfer that takes the club back way too far to the inside. He's actually trying to get it to feel like he's keeping the club outside his arms, but what he does is he just sort of drops down and pulls it back by, watch this now. You can see right there, he's just taking that club way back to the inside, and his head is going forward and down. Now he's all stuck. His right leg is twisted up. He hasn't, now the club's almost directly behind him. He's really trapped. Now he's going to try to uncoil, and he's going to not be able to quite get through the shot because he's feeling all jammed up right there. What we want him to do is, again, here we need to be able to see the fingers of the left hand, and you can't, they're blocked out here, so we haven't rotated the club enough. Onto a great finish. Hard to keep his balance. So we're going to work on getting a more freewheeling, relaxed type of a backswing and see if that helps him. This is the golfer that I mentioned was taking the club too far to the inside. From down the line view, we should be able to see that pretty good. He was working on it a little bit there. You can see how the club's just swinging right back inside. See how far behind him it is. We've got to get that club head. At this point, the club head should be blocking our view of the hands. And it's so far behind him it didn't even make it into the camera. So we got to work on that, okay?